Hi, welcome to Pittsburgh Sportsline. We've got a lot of sports to talk about, but before we get started, our co-host Chip Hayner is not with us tonight. He's had a death in the family. I'd like to send out our condolences to Chip and his family. Sorry for their loss, and I hope he gets through it with everything well. Tonight, instead, we have with us Joe Shelby, local actor, filmmaker, friend of mine, friend of the show. And we're sure Joe feeling quite well. Well, as usual, we'll start off with our regular segment, What's on Your Mind? And we will start again with Al. Al, what's on your mind this week?
What's on my mind is Glenn Anderson sent me an updated list. You have to check out all the positive athletes. They have their dinner on the 21st. And a local boy, Eric Brinkhoff, one of the swimmers here, is one of the positive athletes out of Bethel Park. So thanks. And we appreciate all the help that you did. And Glenn said, thanks again. See you next year, or next season anyhow. But what's on my mind is everybody else in sports with the Penguins. That's what's on our minds. Smoking Jim Frazier called this shot. He said, are you worried about the Philadelphia Flyers like everybody else or most people? I said no. Well, they're at the brink of bombing out of this series. Another friend of mine, Mike Migliore, said maybe Bylsma should go. Just on the talk show and a radio station I won't name, The Fan, they said that Bylsma should go. These guys taught me all these little tips, trying to get up to their professional level. It's a little weak here, and it makes you wonder, why did they get into all these fights, all the things that they criticize about these other teams? They did all of that and more. They're not playing the Penguin hockey that they did play before. They have all the talent in the world, and it looks like, unless a miracle happens, which it could, there's only a few teams that have done this and won, and one of them was the Islanders back in '75. They were in the same situation as the Penguins, and they come on to beat us. So maybe it'll happen for us, but the team's in a little bit of disarray here. How do you get up 2-3 goals? They call a timeout, and the whole complexion of the game changes. And it doesn't look very good for them, and guys should be suspended. So that's what's on my mind.
Well, Jim, what's on your mind?
Thanks, Magic Mike. First and 10 with Smoking Jim. Give you a little insight from the scout. Back in 2000, Pittsburgh Steelers hired me back in 2000. Actually, the general manager at that time, Tom Donahoe, hired me to help him with the 2000 draft. And unfortunately for Tom, he was fired prior to that draft, but I still went there. It was the last year at Three Rivers Stadium. I was fired for being critical of a draft pick named Chris Combs, defensive lineman out of Duke. But 2 years later, in 2003, the Pittsburgh Steelers brought me in, and I was almost fired. The first couple of minutes to look at their big board on the draft of 2003, the guys that they had worthy of a first-round draft choice was Mike Doss, safety of Ohio State, Larry Johnson, running back out of Penn State, Troy Polamalu, a strong safety out of USC, and Alonzo Jackson, outside linebacker from Florida State. And I says, why don't you guys just draft Huey Richardson? And if anybody knows the Pittsburgh Steeler history, Huey the Bum Richardson was the only first-round draft choice ever cut by the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that was like talking about somebody's mama. So I kind of kept quiet. The Pittsburgh Steelers went and traded up to get Troy Polamalu with the 15th pick. They gave away their third pick that draft, so they only had the first day of the draft. Back then, it was still rounds 1, 2, and 3. So in the second round, the Steelers broke my heart by taking Alonzo Jackson, and I tried to keep my mouth shut, but I wasn't too successful. And I called him every bum that you can call a person and kind of made up a few names. So the next day, being that the Steelers didn't have a third round pick, it was a fourth round. And as we wind this up, the Pittsburgh Steelers, Bill Cowher, a great coach, the Pittsburgh Steelers wanted a cornerback because at that time they were used to Harvey Clayton's on the corner, but there was nobody on the board worthy of a first-round draft choice for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And because of this pick is the reason why they brought me back for 10 consecutive years. I told the Pittsburgh Steelers that my number one corner was still available, and they thought I was crazy. I said he was 6'1", If anybody knows anything about NFL cornerbacks, if you get one over 5'10", you're very lucky. I says, my guy's 195 pounds. He got a 43-inch vertical jump. So everybody in the room was laughing a little bit because they thought I was joking. And then they got upset when I said he runs the 40 in 4.26. And everybody got mad because they thought I was making a mockery of the draft. They felt like, hey, if a guy had that much athletic ability and that much potential, he'd have been the first, second, or third player picked overall, not still, 115th still on the board. I says, his name is Ivan Taylor from Louisiana Lafayette. Pittsburgh Steelers called the coaches down there, and they says, yeah, he's here. Hadn't been invited to a combine, haven't been invited outside the town. So Pittsburgh Steelers took a chance, selected him. Mel Kiper and all those guys on ESPN had no information about him, just like the Steeler Scouts. Myron Cope was doing a TV show, a radio show there on the Southside facilities. He had me on. We talked about Ike Taylor, who is now Ike Taylor. And now after his second contract, he was the highest paid defensive back in Steeler history until Troy Polamalu signed his deal. So next week we'll bring you a little bit update on some of the things that goes on in the draft of a draft that's a little closer than 2003 was. So you heard it first and 10 from the Scout.
Thanks, Jim. Well, what's on my mind this week? Obviously, we're going to get back to talking about the Penguins and probably the Steelers draft and maybe the Pirates. But what's on my mind this week are my co-hosts. And first, I'd like to start with Al Levine, the Talking Machine. I know he's got some other things going on, some community stuff happening, and he has an event coming up next week that I'm sure he'd probably like to tell you about. Having guys like that are interested in the community and keeping things rolling, it's a good thing to have on your show. And we got Smoking Jim Frazier, who I've been working with for a long time. Doing shows like this, as you just saw, he knows an awful lot about football in the NFL draft, and he's got a lot of good information for you. So that's one of the reasons you should be watching this show. Like I said earlier, Chip's not with us today, but we have Joe Shelby, longtime friend of mine, local filmmaker, local actor. He was in the original Dawn of the Dead movie. He actually played a couple of parts in that film, helped with the makeup. But one thing that you might not know about Joe Shelby is that he was once a Steeler. Not necessarily in a game, but in a parade. So let's let Joe explain that a little bit. And Joe, tell us about your Steelers career.
Well, back when the Steelers won the first Super Bowl, a friend of mine ran the Chamber of Commerce in Pittsburgh, and no one expected Pittsburgh to go to the Super Bowl. So when they did, they called them up and said, get a parade together. So he called me and he asked me, he said, would you like to ride in a car with Terry Bradshaw? And I said, absolutely. So him, myself, and his girlfriend were in the lead car waiting at the airport. And Mayor Flaherty was the mayor at the time. One of his aides came up and he said, you two out of the car. And I said, where are we going? And he says, I don't know where you're going, but you can't stay here because the mayor wants to ride with Terry Bradshaw. So we walked down along the line of the cars, seeing Jack Lambert, Joe Green, and we came to Preston Pearson's car and it was empty, and the girl waved us over and she said, I don't believe this guy's going to be here today, so if you guys need somewhere to ride, you're more than welcome to ride in here. The only thing we forgot to do was lock the doors, because when we came through the tunnels and down the ramp, we expected everybody to be standing on the sidelines waving, and absolutely ran up to the car, opened the doors, and mugged us. And really didn't know who Preston Pearson was, but I appreciated all the joy and happiness over it.
What a story, Jeff.
So you were Preston Pearson for a day, and the reason Preston Pearson wasn't there was what?
Oh, he got traded to Dallas, and I don't know if anybody's familiar with the old Warner Theater downtown, but a guy with a pair of cowboy boots and a cowboy hat jumps on the top of this brand new car and is looking down through the windshield yelling, "Go Dallas, Preston!" And they ripped him off the car, and off he went. And then somebody threw some chocolate milk in Terry Bradshaw's face, so they cut the parade off and sent us back to the stadium. And I actually got to stand around with a room full of giants, which I was in total awe of. But that's how I became Preston Pearson for the day.
All right, there you go. Pittsburgh Steelers. The first Steeler we've had on the show.
Right.
Well,
You look a lot smaller in person, Joe.
I guess we have to get the most distasteful stuff out of the way first. I want to say that I have never in my life, actually, I haven't been this disappointed since I found out that Bruce Springsteen was a communist. The Pittsburgh Penguins, it's hard to explain what happened, but we probably eventually will have to talk about what should be fixed. They started out with a 3-0 lead in the first game. They blew that game. They looked very bad in the next 2 games, and in Game 3, pretty much reverted to being a bunch of smenheads and goons. If you're going to do something like that, that should have happened in Game 2 maybe, not in Game 3 when you're down 8-5. I don't know, I guess I would say if the Penguins can win 1 game, then they could win 4 and come back from this. I've seen nothing to indicate that they can win 1 game. I expect them to be swept, to lose tomorrow night, and probably badly. Guys, what do you think about what's going on so far?
I started to bring out some of that earlier, Mike, that I'm shocked. I'm in shock how Fleury's playing. Malkin has disappeared. How this young 19-year-old kid basically have him doing nothing. I mean, 1 assist that didn't matter. Smoking Jim called that. I hate to keep pumping him up. He kept saying, "Aren't you afraid of these Flyers?" I am now. I don't see them getting out of this. They may win 1. Just because they can. They have the talent. But who knows?
And yeah, you can be the greatest talent, most talented team of all time, and the Penguins definitely qualify in the talent category. I think they're a great team. I think that they, those guys, if they stick together, that they could have put together a dynasty. But in any sport, whether it's boxing, football, sometimes a matchup is just bad. Styles make for great fights, and styles make for great games. And the Philadelphia was just able to get in the Penguins' head. They were able to take them out of their game all year, especially here in Pittsburgh. And I was just real concerned going into this playoff. I thought the Penguins were worthy of a Stanley Cup championship this year, but I thought it was a bad draw playing Philadelphia in the first round.
Joe, what do you think?
I'm a diehard Pittsburgh sports fan. I got to tell you, you're going to hear it here first. We're going to take the next 4 games.
Woo! Thanks, Preston Pearson.
And
Preston, you're welcome back anytime with predictions like that.
I think it was just a little mishap. Once we got Crosby back, it kind of disorientated the team a little bit. But I think now that we got a little beaten from Philadelphia, we're going to give that beating back. And not physically, we're going to do it with points.
Now, are you concerned that there's, I know at least 2 Penguin players who's probably suspended for this game, and maybe 1 or 2 more that suspensions may come down. Is that a concern for you, Mike?
Well, Craig Adams' suspension is automatic. Anytime an instigator in a fight with 5 minutes left in the game, it's a 1-game suspension. Nothing to do about that. Aaron Asham, actually, they say he cross-checked Couturier in the face. He didn't. He cross-checked him, hit him in the chest. Couturier went down, but then Asham went down on top of him and started to punch him in the back of the head. That's probably going to get him a few games. James Neal's hit was not that bad on Briere. It was not really all that bad, but it was at a bad time in the game, and it set off some fights and stuff. It's possible that he'll get a 1-game suspension out of that. I think that'll be it as far as the suspensions go. I don't know that any of them make a difference. Obviously, James Neal is a high-scoring player, but that's not where the Penguins' problem is. They've got plenty of high-scoring players. Their problem comes, in their ability to think while they're playing, and they've shown no indication that they're going to be able to do that. Joe, I'd love to see them come back and win 4 games. We'd have an awful lot to talk about next week. But
We'll bring you back, Preston.
But I don't think they're going to win. I don't think they'll win tomorrow night. I think that the Penguins need major overhaul. If it was my team after Game 2, I would have sat down Paul Martin and Zbigniew Mikhailiuk, and I would have brought up Brian Straight and Simon Dupre, maybe even Joe Morrow. I know people say, well, they're not ready yet and they're too young. Well, Philadelphia is playing with 6 rookies, and they're all doing a great job. I would sit those guys down, and they would be gone before the beginning of next year. Between those 2 guys, they're taking up $9 million worth of cap space,
Wow.
and they're playing like garbage. I would probably clean out the entire coaching staff. I like Dan Balsam. I think he's a very good coach, but he's obviously lost his team, and they're no longer responding to him. But the Penguins lost this series in the first game. They went up to on a 3-0 lead, and instead of going into a 1-2 or 1-4 trap and protecting that lead, they decided that they were going to try to run up the score. They try that stretch pass where the defenseman throws the puck from deep in their own zone up to the boards on right about the red line, and the whole league's been watching that happen all year. The Flyers are waiting for it. You can blame Fleury because he's not making the outstanding, great, highlight reel film saves that he's usually makes. You usually see him make. But the fact is, he's facing a lot of 1-on-none, 2-on-1, 3-on-1 breakaways, and what goalie can stand up to that constantly? He's given up an awful lot of goals, but a lot of that stuff is because his defense has abandoned him. The forwards go into the other zone. They try to skate the puck in. What's worked for them all year is skate it up to the red line, have the defenseman skate the puck up to the red line, dump it in, go in and forecheck, bang the other team's defenseman, wear them down, and work it out like that. Balsman is no longer controlling that. You no longer see that. I would get rid of him and the entire coaching staff. I would take a hard look at Ray Shero too. He made some great deals. He brought in some nice players, along the way. James Neal was a nice pickup. But there's also been Ponikarovsky, and Alexei Kovalev, and Martin, and Mikhailiuk. And it was very, very clear at the trade deadline this year that the Penguins needed another backup goalie. He did nothing to address that, and now they have nothing to replace Fleury with. If they decide to pull him, they put in Brett Johnson the last game, and it only took 1 shot to score on him. But he was very capable get backup last year, but this year he's been playing very poorly, and that needed to be addressed. So if I'm Mario Lemieux, I'm taking a hard look at Shero too, and we'll sit down and have a talk. But I wouldn't say that his position's safe either. If you get rid of Mikhailiuk and Martin, you free up $9 million worth of cap space. Talk to Jordan Stahl. I wouldn't pay him too much. He's got 1 year left on his contract. He'll probably get overpaid by some team, but I wouldn't dump a lot of money into him to keep him. I would keep Sidney Crosby, keep the rest of the core together. And one of the things that they've done every year but didn't do this year is bring in a strong veteran presence. Gary Roberts, Bill Guerin. This year they didn't do that. They brought in a veteran, Steve Sullivan, but he's not a very strong personality. He's not a strong leader type. And it's obvious that the Penguins miss that right now. So anyway, that's what I would do to try to clean this up. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not, but I think the Penguins have been for a rough off season.
I think the beginning and the end was when they didn't bring in Yager.
Well, here, you bring up a point there. You were asking about these players if they get suspended. They'll probably suspend them all. And it's not going to affect them that much because they stepped up before. It's a matter the coach can only do so much, just like the general manager. All they can do is get the horses there. If they don't go around the racetrack and win, it's time to get another horse. But the Penguins do have a history. Look at Lemieux. How many coaches did he run out of town, Mike? That's the thing. Scotty Bowman was a Hall of Fame coach. He couldn't even run the practices, so eventually he was gone. Then look at Terrian. And Smokin' Jim always brings up how Mike Tomlin inherited a team and went to the Super Bowl. What did Dan do? Same type of thing. So now it's what he has to do. His system, they found the flaws in it like Mike's pointing out. And when everybody's looking at the puck, I think you have a problem. These guys are coming around the net, and they know the Penguins want to get the puck out of there, to be frank. So that's happening. And how does a guy like Yager get a breakaway shot on Fleury? Not once, but twice. How does that happen? He's 40 years old, and you can see he doesn't have the wheels that he used to. He still has those wide legs and can keep people away with his arm and stick. But how is he getting that? And how's he doing that spinorama with that illegal hook stick that he got the puck in the goal there? So, I mean, I don't think they need to dismantle the club, but we do have quite a few issues there. And I got to jump on Joe's bandwagon that I'd love to see him win 4 straight. So,
Do you think they'll do it?
I'm betting against it. But I'd love to see it.
No kidding. I'd love to see them win 16 straight and carry the cup back, because I still want to see the parade. I don't know who Joe's going to be in this one.
Yeah. Some of the Penguins are almost your size there, Preston.
Yeah, you got a good point there.
What do you think?
Brashear is no longer on the Penguins.
I think though, Jordan Stahl actually isn't going to be here next year. They moved him down when Sid came back, and I think that hurt. The lines that they had set up were great, and they should have just kept Sid as a rover and kept the lines together, but Bosma broke the lines up, and once he broke those lines up, it disorientated the whole team, and 3 shorthanded goals against us. I mean, that's unheard of, you know. If somebody would have told me that in the beginning of the playoffs, I would have told them they were crazy. But we're looking at it. We watched it on TV. So
somebody on this show said once that bringing Sidney Crosby back might ruin the chemistry. And you know, of course, I was
You're
an
right,
idiot,
Mike.
but you know.
You're right, Mike.
But
Do you need to hear that?
You know, I don't know.
You're right,
I don't know if that's what happened, but I think it was a possibility. I don't even know that it was bringing him back ruined the chemistry, or maybe that Ballsma just got so enamored with having the greatest player in the world back that he started making some mistakes. Oops, we have a phone call.
that's one of the viewers calling in.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Hello, welcome
You're
to Pittsburgh Sportsline.
Hello. They're prank calling us.
I guess.
That might have been Bosma.
I think it was Bowsman there.
No, you got fired on the way.
He said, I'm still going to be the coach.
Hello, welcome to Pittsburgh Sportsline. Okay, apparently that call wasn't for us.
They were just calling the station.
It was Yager.
Yeah, he said, you're talking bad about it.
We were talking bad about Yager.
Talking about
I
that
was.
stick.
I don't know that
I
Yager
think
would have
the
made a
illegal stuff.
difference, although I do think, like you said, they should have picked up some kind of veteran presence. Yager's never really been a good leader. He's always been a great player, never really a good leader. But somebody like Bill Guerin, Gary Roberts, stabilized this team when they were at least stabilized the locker room a little bit when they were here. So.
I think they should have kept LaRock. He would have.
That's a great point.
He would have controlled all of that mayhem that was going on.
And Jim would go to the games again then. If LaRock were there, he'd go back up. What do you think, Spoken Jim?
But yeah, without a player like that, or
A true enforcer, you're saying.
yeah, a true enforcer, we needed somebody like that from the beginning, and we really didn't have that. We had some guys that got into some scuffles and could do a little bit of damage, but nothing like a Roberts or a LaRock I mean, they just took the game in hand and said, this is the way we're going to play, and you're going to play our way, or else this is what's going to happen to you.
Well,
and they showed them.
They they have Steve McIntyre. They sent him down to Wilkes-Barre for the series. He's the toughest guy in the NHL. Well, he's not in the NHL now, but he's the toughest guy in the league. They sent him down. And I don't think that. I mean, the Flyers pushed the Penguins around a lot, but the Flyers haven't beaten the Penguins in 3 games. The Penguins have beaten themselves in 3 games. They've beaten themselves badly. They absolutely have to turn this around. They have to start playing the way that they played on their 13-game winning streak. If they don't, if they continue to play the way they are, we'll only have to talk about them one more time next week, and they'll be done till the draft. So that's it's going to be a long off season for the Penguins. I know Chip's not here, but I think we have to talk about the Pirates because they won a game. Actually, they won 3 games. They're 9 games into the season, and they're only 4.5 games out of first place.
I think they're 10 now, and they're 3-7. So actually, it's the same old Buccos, those SOBs. The same old Bucks are back in business, Mike.
Well, you know what? They've shown some good pitching. The bats are doing nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. They've got a draft coming up soon. They got the 8th pick in the draft. I'm willing to bet my life right now they're going to pick a pitcher. But that's not what they need to do. I mean, everybody, Pedro Alvarez this, Pedro Alvarez that. You know what? Nobody's giving the guy a chance. Let him bat. Let him bat the way he wants to bat, and see what he does. Okay, and if he doesn't do it, get rid of him. But whenever they trade him, I guarantee you, wherever he goes, because that team will have a good batting coach, this kid's going to be a great hitter, and he's going to hit a lot of home runs. And people are going to talk about Bautista and Ramirez and Alvarez all in the same breath, guys that the Pirates couldn't teach to hit, went on to become all-stars. But I think he's a good baseball player. I just think that this, again, I've said it a million times, this organization has a culture of losing, and they cultivate that culture. They don't, they don't seem to want to do anything about it. If you want to change that, you bring in winners. You don't bring in a head coach that has a losing record, like Hurdle or all the guys before him. You bring in a head coach or a manager with a winning record. Somebody like they could have had Phil Garner, they could have had Tony Pena, 2 guys that have had great success as managers and also have ties to the Pirates. This is something that is not going to stop until they do that. You bring up people from the minor leagues who are good players, and you bring them into this culture of losing. I would love to sit in the Pirates clubhouse one day after a loss and see how they feel about it. I bet that they don't really care that much because that's what they do. It's not a team like the Steelers. I'm sure when the Steelers lose, they don't expect to lose, and it's not okay with them. The same with the Penguins. Even though, like you said, they're not playing very well, I'm sure that it upsets them to lose. I don't get that feeling from the Pirates at all.
I can't argue with you on that, Mike. And like I said, I think Alvarez should be in the minor leagues until he earns his way back up there. He hasn't shown much. And then here's a latest report on A.J. Burnett. Went up to AAA Indianapolis, and I think he might have pitched 4 innings and gave up 5 runs, and that didn't strike anybody out. So it's a little bit of a setback for him on his accelerated healing process there. I guess James Harrison didn't give him all the tips that he needed. He did come back, but he's not doing this last start, maybe a little setback. And they didn't improve the offense, no matter what anybody says. They know the Pirates can't hit home runs. They'll get one here and there. And it's just a lack of offense. It's basically the same old Bucks. And that's how they perform. The losing culture, that's quite obvious, and we've brought it up here numerous times. And how do you change that? Maybe it's the ownership change. And maybe with the baseball league changing how they can put their money into minor leagues will cut some of the shenanigans out from just not giving the players here and increasing the payroll. You do have to get some improvement of players, and we're not seeing that. So I don't see much change this summer.
I think they should have cloned Willie Stargell.
Pops.
Yeah.
You just want to play him in the parade.
Were you in the parade with Pops there? Did they pick you up for that one? No.
Unfortunately not.
You bring up A.J. Burnett, and that's another example of what the Pirates do wrong. Think about this. Which organization do you think knows baseball better, the New York Yankees or the Pittsburgh Pirates? When the New York Yankees pay you to take a player off their hands, I gotta suspect that he's not going to be the answer. All right, the Yankees agreed to pay half of this guy's salary if the Pirates would take him. They were in a big hurry to get rid of A.J. Burnett, and they knew they had a sucker right down the street in Pittsburgh.
Right, but nobody knew that he'd foul the first bunt off his orbital and get a fracture. I mean, we just thought that he wouldn't be able to pitch. They said his arm was fine, and like I had said previously, it takes you a while to get into pitching shape. So what did they do? They sent him to the lowest minors. Then they moved him up a step because he did all right. Now he went to AAA, and he's not really ready.
No, he gave up 5 runs on 8 hits, no strikeouts
Right.
in 4 innings.
Right.
You know,
So he's not ready. That set him back.
and maybe that bunt was the best thing that happened to him because, like I said, if the Yankees were that anxious to get rid of him, they probably knew that he was not going to be a successful pitcher. And even if he is, what's that going to add? 4 more wins to what the Pirates had? Pirates are looking at another sub-500 season. This time, it might be way sub-500. I don't know what the record for losses in a season is, but this team is definitely built to make that record.
Yeah, it might be over 120 losses. I'm not sure, but I'll have to check that. So, yeah.
And unfortunately, Pittsburgh has a history of getting a good player, and then as soon as the team gets used to this good player and he's playing well, they get rid of him. You can't win a championship when you start off getting excellent players and then selling them or trading them off. You have to keep those players. You need that nucleus to keep that team together. And unfortunately, Pittsburgh has a history of doing that. Even back with the Steelers, they've done the same thing. So the only way I think they're going to do that is if they keep the rookies they got and just keep working with them. And eventually, we got to win something.
Well, we're going to set another North American franchise record of 20 years in a row for losing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't see it happening or turning around in the next year or two with their philosophy, like you're saying. And it's a shame. Just like Ramirez, when he was here and they traded him, it was about money. And they could have just got him back recently with another contract. And he was a great hitter to begin with. Then he went to Chicago and still did that. Now, Batista, he was injured here. They didn't give him a fair chance for the less than year that he was here. And then he went to Canada, where I don't know what they do up there. Maybe it's the atmosphere up there is a little better. And all of a sudden he could hit home runs and long home runs compared to anybody else. And he got powerful, and who knows what happened there up in Canada. So it just makes you wonder there.
Maybe they have a batting coach up there. I know the Pirates have a batting coach too, but he never hit 250 in his life. So, how do you become the batting coach when you can't hit yourself?
Well, some of it is some players, I don't know if you've played sports, the best athlete isn't always the best coach. A lot of your better athletes can't tell you how to play well. They're instinctive, maybe they're quicker, maybe they're stronger, but some of these guys that aren't the best athletes do make coaches. Look at Jimmy Leland, for Detroit up there. He wasn't a great player. He was a bad catcher, he even admits it. And he's won a few championships there. So I disagree there.
There's a difference between being the manager and being the batting coach. If you can't bat, how can you teach somebody else to bat? Being the manager, you do lineups and stuff like that, and that can work out because you can have an idea of the concept of the game, but I can't teach you to do something that I don't know how to do.
Well, the manager
doesn't
hires
work like
these
that.
coaches, so somebody has to be in charge of these kids. So if he's hiring these guys that aren't that competent, then doesn't the responsibility go to the manager
Right,
to
but
get
Jim
rid of that
Leland-
batting coach if he's not competent?
Exactly. Jim Leland's hired good batting coaches and good pitching coaches. You got to give it to Ray Siri here. Our pitching coach is good. He's done a good job with these young pitchers. The batting coach is not good. The team can't hit. So what can you do with that? Anyway, I think we've killed the Pirates enough. Unless anybody else has something else to say here.
On the Pirates?
Yeah, I'd like to ask Jim what he thinks about the upcoming draft.
Well, I got a feeling that me and Kevin Colbert's going to go at it again. And Kevin Colbert is a overrated general manager of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Kevin Colbert's wheelhouse is with wide receivers. And again, he's going to take a wide receiver within the first couple of picks because of he's had success. If you remember, that's what him and Matt Millen did when they destroyed the Detroit Lions. But we have a team that has been unsuccessfully drafting offense and defensive linemen. Everybody beats up on the offensive line, and that's very obvious. But if you look at the defensive line, is anybody confident that Ziggy Hood can take the next step in the National Football League? I'm not saying Ziggy Hood's a bust, but he's been a disappointment. I don't know if people know for sure if Ironhead Hayward's son will be the next great one at the defensive end position. So, like I said before, and I've been saying for years, and I've been taking a lot of heat, says when Bill Cowher players begin to retire, the Pittsburgh Steelers will turn into the Pittsburgh Pirates. Bill Cowher's players has been run out of the clubhouse this year, and I'm already predicting that the Pittsburgh Steelers will be lucky to go 8-8, 9-7 next year.
Wow.
I think Ziggy Hood's a serviceable defensive lineman. He's not going to replace Aaron Smith. That phase of that area of the Steelers' defense is hurting badly now, and it'll be exposed during the season, I'm sure. Apparently, they're going to open the season on a Sunday night against Denver. So if they don't do something to shore up the secondary,
Clark won't be
that's
there.
going to be a pretty
that's
ugly
for
game.
sure.
That's right. Brian Clark won't be able to play.
That's good.
No Tebow.
No Tebow, right? Yeah, they're definitely taking a step down from Tim Tebow to Peyton Manning.
Can he play?
But I
That's the
think
only
I
question.
think this guy might be as good as Tebow, maybe even a little better. It's possible. I mean, they re-signed Troy Essex and Doug Legursky on the offensive line. Somebody on the team must hate Ben Roethlisberger because they're setting him up to get him killed. I think, again, I've said this since a year ago that they're going to take Gordy Glenn from Georgia, an offensive lineman from Georgia. That's just my thoughts on it. Jim says a wide receiver. It looks like they're going to keep Mike Wallace because nobody wants to give up a first-round draft pick for him. They made him $2.7 million offer. At that price, he's a steal, I think.
I think somebody will pick him up too. I think he's going to be gone.
I don't think so, Joe. Whoever picks him up has to give up a first-round pick. Why do that this year when next year they can just get him for nothing?
Well, it
Make
was
him the same
strategy.
offer,
Right, it was a
and get him for
strategy
nothing.
that they made.
A lot of people will be bidding for him next year. I got a question for you, Jim. If the Steelers traded up to the number 1 pick, who would you take?
If I had the number 1 pick overall, it'd be no question who I would take. A guy, I always look at if you look at football players are made. You can say what you want about Peyton Manning. Nobody in the history of the game has outworked Peyton Manning. A lot of it's for selfish reasons. He gets those receivers out there to help him, but Peyton Manning's already got his wide receivers working out at the high school field. They're out there the first day of camp. He had 60-some players out there. Peyton Manning's going to work because he believes that the completions that you make in April will be the same ones that you perfect when they play against the Steelers Sunday night. The hardest working college player that I've ever seen off and on the field. He has a 500-pound bench press. He runs a 4.440. He squats a house. This guy is hard working. He can block. He can play all 3 downs. And that'll be Trenton Richardson from University of Alabama. You can get a running back, and I tell you what, I'll run their wheels off for 5 years. Running backs, every running back that would play for me would end their career with the same limp that Earl Campbell has. You know what I mean? I believe the running backs are a piece of meat, and I'm going to use you 30 to 35 times a game until your body parts start to fall off. And Trent Richardson is built to carry that ball 30 times a game.
Actually, that's why I asked that, because I knew that's who you would pick. And I gotta think it's the obvious answer right now, especially since Rashard Mendenhall won't be playing this year. I think it'll be a great addition to the Steelers. There's no chance that they're going to get that. Al, what do you think about the draft?
Well, I got to agree with Smoke and Jim. They have a history of getting these wide receivers. They've had problems all over the place. And then it seems the pick that they have for defense is always like a bogus pick. So, I mean, and I'm just an amateur here. I'm not like the pro here. So, and they need an offensive line. Although they have gone, maybe their theory is we take a cheap offensive line and go to the Super Bowl. Our $100 million quarterback will save the day. Well, he's getting to be 30 years old, so that may not be too much longer. So, yeah, it's going to be the same old Steelers with their pick.
I guess we'll see what happens coming up. Personally, I think it sucks that the NFL changed the draft from Saturday to Thursday night. I think it's kind of ridiculous. But, you know, I guess they're going to try to stretch those ratings out from Thursday through Sunday instead of just 2 days. All right, we have a special guest. We already introduced Joe Shelby. He's had a lot of input to the show so far. But Joe just recently completed a film called The Green Man, based on a local urban legend. We want to run a clip from that and then get back to Joe and let him tell us a little bit about that legend.
He's real.
The story you're about to see is based on a true urban legend that goes back over 50 years. As the story goes, a power lineman working on a high-power box. Out of nowhere comes a storm. The worker tries to finish what he's doing. All of a sudden, he's struck by lightning and knocked off the pole. Some people believe the man died and is a ghost. And then, there are those who believe he's still alive. We leave that up to you.
All right. Well, Joe, I guess how about start out? Tell us a little bit about the local urban legend, the Green Man, right here in South Hills.
South Park.
South Park.
South Park. Yeah, it's an urban legend. The tunnel's an urban legend. It started out. They have two urban legends, and one of them is an actual guy. It's Charlie No Face, and a lot of people confused him with the Green Man from the Green Man Tunnel. And what actually happened back then in, I think it was in 1926, one of the railroad workers was changing a light bulb in the tunnel and he got electrocuted. So somehow Charlie No Face became the Green Man, and so if you parked in the tunnel and the Green Man come out and put his hand on your car wouldn't start back up. They have some old gas stations. I'm sure a few of us remember Texaco gas stations, but if you go online, you'll see where people have had their cars broken down in a tunnel and they came down and tried to start them and couldn't get them started. But I was in Ohio working on a film, and a guy asked me, he says, "Hey, have you ever did any movies on your own?" And I said, "Yeah." And then I thought about it, and I said, "There's so many dead movies out there and vampire movies." So I thought, well, urban legends might be something good. So my favorite was the Green Man Tunnel. So I started out with that. And hopefully, if I make some money with that, we're going to do the next one, which would be 13 Bends. Which is another urban legend. But yeah, the Green Man's been around since 1925.
Wow.
So it's a long time legend here.
Is there a real Green Man? Or
As
do you
far-
believe there's a...
I believe because the research I did on it, I went all the way to Tarentum. I was all over the place, and I would ask, do you know where the Green Man Tunnel is? "Oh yeah, it's right down the road here." And everybody that told me where the tunnel was always it was always by the railroad tracks. So I assumed that Charlie No Face at night used to just jump on a train and go different areas and visit, and that's how the Green Man was in every area around.
Wow.
So, yeah, as far as seeing the Green Man, I didn't get a chance to see him, but I would have liked to.
Were you close a couple times, or you don't know?
Well, we had a day where we were all standing around and rock salt had come out of the tunnel, and there was nobody in there. So it kind of made the hair on my neck stand up a little bit because I thought somebody was watching us, you know. And a gas station by my house, some kids just went out there last week. The tunnel's fenced off, but they had their camera out and they were filming, and they didn't see it on their phone, but when they came back and they looked at it, there was a green image inside the tunnel.
Wow.
So the kid just posted it, I think, on Facebook, but he said he never seen it when he was filming it, but he showed it to me at the gas station, and sure enough, there's a green blur inside the tunnel. So.
Well, that's what they say with a lot of these ghost shows that are on there now. You may not see it when we're looking around the studio,
right.
But if we take a picture of it, we might have the Green Man visiting you, or the ghost of something else, or Charlie No Face.
Wow.
Whatever happened to him? That should have been another movie.
Yeah, well,
You could have put any actor in there, right?
Yeah. There's an old story about Joe Namath from Beaver Falls, and him and another college buddy took Charlie No Face, and they were driving him around, giving him beer and partying with him. And I just hope one of these days I run into Joe Namath, because I want to confirm that story, because I think that was pretty neat that he would
Take him out?
Take him out and get him a couple beers and buy him some cigarettes, you know.
That's a heck of a story.
Who was wearing a pantyhose?
Joe?
Joe, obviously.
He shaved his legs. Made a little money with that.
Joe,
Oh, yeah.
the Green Man is a Pittsburgh local legend, but once you got involved with it, you found out that it's pretty much worldwide. It's known pretty much worldwide.
Oh, absolutely. All parts of the world, there is somebody from Pittsburgh, and all you have to do is mention the Green Man Tunnel, and they say, I know exactly where that's at. Some people say it's in Dravosburg, and because they made their own Green Man Tunnel there. But South Park is where the original, Piney Creek Road is where the original Green Man was. But if you go online, there's people from all over the world that know the story about the Green Man Tunnel. And
Isn't there a convention or something you were invited to in England?
yeah, there's a convention in England. It's a Green Man convention, but it's not the Green Man Tunnel. It's a Green Man that back during history, if you had a drought, he would bring water. If you had a famine, he would bring food. So this Green Man's, he's been around forever. And I was invited to bring the Green Man movie to the festival, and I think next year we're going to go to England with it and let them see it. Our Pittsburgh Green Man.
Did you film it at the tunnel there?
Yes.
On Piney Fork?
We actually filmed at the tunnel. I had first asked the South Park Borough, I said, well, can we move the rock salt? They had 50 tons of rock salt in the tunnel. And they said, what are you going to do with 50 tons of rock salt, Joe? And I said, well, let me go back and rewrite that part of the script. So I actually went back and rewrote that part of the script because we couldn't get the salt out of the tunnel. But yeah, I had permission from the borough. I had South Park Police. I had the paramedics from South Park. I mean, I had full cooperation from everybody. It was great, you know, that they opened their arms to me and asked me if we can put a copy of the movie in their library. So it's going to be infamous to me, you know, being in their library.
Well, tell us a little bit about your own career. You know, what movie got you started, and what films you've done since. How many you've done? And,
well, I've worked on over 50 movies. I started out, I thought I was going to be the best special effects stage man in history of theater, and that didn't work out. So I started doing special effects for film, And then I got into a play, and I got the acting bug. So then I started to act. I was in a couple independent films. And then I took a handwritten resume down to George Romero and a snapshot of me, and I said, hey, I want to be in your movie. Never thinking that, you know, he's going to let me be in there. But sure enough, you know, 5 months later, I believe it was, he called me up and said, be downtown tomorrow. And I went in, and the rest was history on that. We actually, I don't think hardly anybody thought the movie was going to be as big as it was.
What movie was it?
Dawn of the Dead.
It's a classic.
Put that one out there.
That's a big one, Jeff.
But that one, I've worked on a few. I worked on a movie with Michael Keaton. Ron Howard directed Gun Ho. Hoffa. I've worked on a few. A lot
I have
of
a question.
Pittsburgh
Are you taller than Danny DeVito?
Yes, I am. And I actually, in the production office, when he walked in, I said, hey, look, there's somebody shorter than me. And one of the crew guys said, don't say that too loud or you might not be working tomorrow.
What kind of guy is Danny there?
Oh, very nice.
Is he?
We were on the docks out in Oakland filming a scene, and he walked up to me with his Cuban cigar, and he said, you got a lighter? I said, sure. So I gave him my lighter, and he lit a cigar and gave me my lighter back, and one of the extras said, I'll give you $20 for that lighter. I said, it's yours.
Nice move, Jeff.
But of all the directors I've worked with, I think George Romero was so laid back, and you know, you never heard him raise his voice once, you know. And then I would have to say Ron Howard was great. He one day in we were in Southside shooting, and boy, that's a Pittsburgh thing, Southside.
Yes, that's all right.
But we were filming, and there was a bunch of people standing outside the fence, and they wanted his autograph, and it was time to break for lunch, and he told everybody, go to lunch. And he stood out there and signed everybody's autograph and took a picture with everybody. Wow. And just completely skipped his lunch. And when it was time to go back to work, he just went right back to work. And,
So, excuse me, you're saying those are the two best directors you ever worked with?
well, as far
Because
as
if you are, I guarantee you'll never be back on this show.
You're invited back. I don't care.
as far as Hollywood,
How about Pittsburgh?
I know that
How about Pittsburgh?
Dawn of
Pittsburgh
the Dead.
directors,
Pittsburgh directors.
yeah.
I know that Dawn of the Dead was one of the greatest horror films ever made. And Gung Ho is a pretty good movie, and Hoffa was okay, and you know, Romero's okay, and Ron Howard's had some success. But I also know that you were in the great horror film Alexis. You
Yes,
played
I
a bartender in that film. I'm pretty sure that the director of that is going to be even better than the other guys you talked about.
There's a
eventually.
shameless plug coming up here.
You
And
think?
I really
recognize it.
I really have to say I was fortunate enough to know the director since he was a young man. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten that small part in the movie.
Small part.
But had I got in touch with him before that, I think he would have gave me a bigger part because that's the kind of guy he is.
Well, we also have the film Niners coming up sometime soon. You know, and you have a very good part for that one.
Well, that's a good plug for me then.
Yeah. So.
You guys are trading plugs. Hey, I had a question. You were with Jack Nicholson, weren't you? And
Yeah.
what do you think of him?
He was kind of kept to himself, but he did come around everybody and let them talk to him a little bit. I had to ask him about Easy Rider. I mean, because I worked with Dennis Hopper on a few programs. There's one who's Dennis Hopper. I worked with him on a TV movie, HBO. It was called Citizen Cone.
Yeah, I saw it.
And I did extras casting on it. And then I was doing a video game movie with Terry Garr and Dennis Hopper, and And he comes in the room and he says, "Hey, I know you." And I thought he recognized me from Citizen Cone. He says, "Cheech Martin." And I was like, "Oh, I thought you remembered who I was, Dennis." You know?
Well, also another great character actor, William Forsythe, has been in a ton of movies. Always does a great job. He's a good friend of yours, Joe. What can you tell us about him?
Oh, he's talk about a super guy. There's a guy that'll take his shirt off his back for you if he knows you. To look at him, he looks scary. A lot of people won't approach him, but he's to me one of the best actors out there right now. He's on an HBO series called Boardwalk Empire, and he got a character part, and they extended it into the whole season, and he's back for this season. And I think he's going to be on there for the duration because he's a good actor, even though he did get a couple teeth broken by Steven Seagal in a movie. But
Were you on the set?
no, it wasn't. But he always reminds me about when I tell him, "Let's go get something to eat," he goes, "I have bad teeth right here." But yeah, great guy, and he's not above everybody else. Doesn't do that. He doesn't play that game. If you approach him, he talks to you like an everyday person, and to me, that's a good actor. That's a good person and a good actor. And hopefully, we remain friends for a long time. He's actually he's got a place down in Belize. I'd love to come and stay down there with him for a while in case you ever get to hear this.
Well, this is on YouTube.
Well,
Pittsburgh Sportsline on YouTube. He can check this out on the internet.
there he goes. That might be my shot to go to Belize and hang out for the rest of my life.
If you do see this show, Bill, I think Joe and I would make some great managers from that resort you have down there. I think I could stand to go to Belize too.
I've actually been to Belize.
I'm not sure what their hockey team does down there, but
We can make one. We can
make
start
one
one.
up.
It's not a very developed country there, and you have to watch if they want to take you on a taxi ride there. Luckily, Mike's a trained assassin or killer, so he'd be a good guy at the fences when we were on a cruise there in Belize. It's a beautiful country, but it's pretty much undeveloped for certain areas there. So you do need some security down there.
Well, first, I haven't killed anyone since 1991. I miss it, but it's been a
Just
while.
thought I'd bring that up.
Again, as we close up, I'd like to again extend our condolences to Chip Hayner and his family. We're sorry for your loss. I'd like to thank Joe Shelby for coming in and helping us out today. And great show, guys, and we will see you next week.